I'm gonna open up Procreate, and I have this canvas preset called Starter set to the color profile that I use and the dimensions I use, and I usually do really big, large size. I always have. I'm thinking if I do, then I have the option at one point to print this out. I'm gonna print out something large. You need to have a large resolution. So, although I've never really have, so I don't know. Maybe I should reconsider that. When I sketch, I like to sketch with this blue color here. So I'm gonna sample this blue color. I'm gonna draw right here. And I found a reference that I'll be drawing from. I'm gonna use the reference window here. I picked this reference because she's wearing a lot of makeup. She kind of looks fake. At first I thought maybe she was a painting, but the only thing that's painted on is her makeup. But that's okay. I actually like to go for these kinds of references because I feel like it's gonna be easier to capture that. I'm not yet at a point where I'm looking to challenge myself. I'll get there, but right now, I just want to see success in as easy a way as I can. That's what I'm gonna go for here. Okay, I want to use, under airbrushing, this soft brush here. I wanna sketch with that. I'll just take the default settings. Also the erase, I wanna make sure it's set on soft brush and soft brush for my smudge too. So the first thing I do is just circle and maybe make it a little bit bigger here. I want to kind of approximate this shape right here. It's like if she were wearing an eye mask. Where would the eye mask be? I'm thinking right here. So, you know, her eye ends up being in here, her left and right. Then I'm going to draw this imaginary line right out here, basically touching her cheekbones. And then I'll connect it to that 3D shape I got going on there. Her nose is right here. For her nose, I do like a circle for the tip. That's a little bit too big for me. I'm gonna like that. And then a smaller circle right here for the nostril. The shapes are a little bit too defined. So I smudge a little bit. Bridge of the nose. Now I'm really starting to get sketchy here. And I'm just letting the tip of the Apple Pencil just kind of glide across the glass. I press harder and lighter, depending on if I want a mark to be made. Whenever I do lips, they do turn out rough, always initially. I almost never like the way they look. So I'll do an initial drawing, I'll go to Liquify almost right away, and I'll start moving around what I just drew. Liquify in digital drawing, I compare it to like spell check when you're using a word processor on a computer. You can just kind of approximate words, and you can rely on your spell checker to catch your errors. Same thing with Liquify, I think. The chin here. She's got very interesting hair. I think that's maybe another reason why I picked this one. I really liked the curviness of the hair. That's gonna be fun to render. I think drawing it makes it easy too, because you can kind of very clearly see the shapes of the hair, the hairstyle like this. I'm not going to draw the earrings. This is something I always do, is I look for opportunity to modify what it is I'm drawing. And one of the easiest modifications for me is when it comes to women is just don't draw the jewelry. I'm not really interested in the jewelry anyway. Another thing I did differently here is reference that I found originally, she's facing that way. So I just flipped it. So I like to do that whenever I find a reference. Is a lot of times when I find a reference I want to draw, I'll do the mirror image Most of the time, the mirror image is just as appealing, if not sometimes more appealing than the other way. So I'll start with that, and that'll actually be my goal, is to end the drawing in the mirror image of the reference I find. That as another kind of quick and easy way to modify what it is I'm drawing. Even though the photo cuts off her hair, I'm drawing the top here. It was cutting off over here. I'm drawing the full thing. So I can already tell my portions are probably off here. Almost always this part of the face is going to be too big. The mouth's not going to be quite right. The nose is going to be quite right. But I'm not going to sweat any of that. This is potentially the part where someone who's trying this for the first time is just going to give up and say, oh, I can't draw, and they'll shut it down, and then it won't do any more exploration. I say push through. We've got lots of experimenting to do before we realize whether this is a success or failure. So right away, I'm going to flip horizontally my canvas. What I can do is I'm going to clear the import here, and I'm going to do the same thing to my reference. I'm just going to flip it like that. Done. Import. Now she's facing the way I'm drawing. Before I start with marks right away, I'm going to jump straight to my Liquify. I'm just going to start nudging stuff around. Liquify is acting squirrely, and I think that's because the momentum's all the way up, and that's an accident, I think. Yes, that's definitely an accident. I turned it down to about halfway. And really I'm just going by feel. I'm doing quick taps here, and I'm looking over, and sometimes mostly I'm doing it because I want these to look similar. But ultimately, my goal is not necessarily to achieve her likeness. I'm not doing a portrait for her or anybody she knows. This is purely for me. I think she has a pretty face, and I want to achieve a pretty face, and I feel like if I can approximate, I'll be able to achieve that here. And I've actually been in a situation where I end up liking my drawing more than the reference. Not all the time. I mean, sometimes I really just don't like my drawing. But if it's a good drawing, I'll actually end up liking the drawing more. But again, really my goal is just approximation of the features. I don't need to go for a true likeness. The drawing will go through phases of I like how things look, I don't like how things look. Right now I'm not liking how this looks down here. Undo. Another advantage of digital art is you've got this chance to undo. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to try to tighten up a little bit these features. I'm going to start with the nose here. There's this kind of circle. Let me bring down, up the opacity, down the sides a little bit. Before it was like this really circular thing, but her nose has a certain shape, so I'm making this tip a little bit more of an egg. And same with the nostrils. It's going to be more of an egg shape. Smudge this mark a little bit. It's a little bit more pronounced than I wanted. Another thing about references is I try to find faces. Usually they're women's faces, and the reason why they're usually women is, I'm guessing, is they're usually models. Like I said before, I try to go for easier drawings. Women's faces have makeup. They already did some of the drawing for you on their own face. And so what you can do when you're drawing them is you can recognize what some of those marks are, and you can translate them. I'm not saying guys are hard. You can draw guys too. They can be easy because of maybe more their angular features. Women's features tend to be more smoothed out, rounded, to look more feminine. Going down to a medium airbrush on the erase because I kind of want more of a pronounced erase mark right here, but not that pronounced, so I'm smudging it down a little bit. It still is a little harsh here. I kind of want to just smudge this mark in. It is kind of a softer shadow, and I just had it in as a line here. And I'm just going to boldly draw the eye. It may not be ultimately in the right position of what I got going on so far. I'm drawing digitally. I can smudge, can liquify, move stuff around. I'm not stuck. I have some flexibility in a way that I don't have in traditional art media. So what I was saying before about references, I tend to pick women because I feel like they're mostly easier to draw. I can tell failure and success easier because I just ask myself, well, is what I'm drawing pretty? And if it is, success. I also try to, I think I'm more find references where they're not looking directly at the camera, more appealing. She's looking off to the side. Sometimes I might find a reference where I really enjoy, I really like the reference, but they're looking at the camera and I wish they weren't. And this is where I'll push myself. I'll say, oh, could I change it? Can I possibly draw this, but it's, maybe the eyeballs are right in the center. Can I move them over and do it in a way that's convincing? And I'll give it a go. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's another kind of change I can make. Okay, I'm just gonna feel the lines here, just with some scratchiness. Smudging this is a little too scratchy, but there's a shape here. I'm kind of just drawing lines that are following the forms. Imagine just drawing on her cheek, and I might be drawing like that because it's kind of what the shapes are doing. I'm just drawing smudge marks. I'm not drawing like the eyebrow. I'm not drawing the outline of the eyebrow. I'm drawing just kind of smudgy little marks here. And I may get close right away, but that's just coincidental. Chances are I'm going to come back and I'm going to refine. Her ear is underneath her hair, and I'm thankful for this. Ears are hard to draw. I'm very thankful her hair is coming down over her ear. Hopefully this doesn't look like a cop-out that I'm purposely trying to avoid the ear. I gladly will avoid the ear. And smudge it up here. You gotta consider the surface that you're drawing. She's got this smooth, soft skin. I shouldn't draw as if I'm drawing like foliage or anything. Even though it's a rough sketch, I'm gonna use my smudge to soften up things that might be a little bit too harsh. Now that I've got some more, actually, let me not skip past her lips. Come down to a medium brush here. Sketch up the lips a little bit. Still a little bit of a mess of what I got. Open mouths are actually hard too. Anytime you see a reference where the mouth is opened a little bit and you kind of see the teeth in there, that's a challenge. It'd be much simpler if her mouth was closed. Now I can use Liquify here, maybe a smaller Liquify. The nose is a little bit too small. I've drawn it too small, or maybe the lips were too big. Point is, I'm just gonna nudge around stuff until the proportions seem right to me. Making her eye a little bit bigger. This is a little bit more raised. Just a little flatter here. I'm liking that. I like how it looks so far. It's not 100%. It's not 100% likeness to here, but it's pretty close. And I'm basically achieving what I'm going for. Before I get more detail, like there is some more darkness here on this eye that I want to get before I get to that point. I want her facing this way. And I can see right when I do that, there's something weird over here. There's some weirdness. Do like I did before. Flip her back to the direction I was going for. Done is what I need to do. I'm gonna grab my Liquify and I'm gonna fix up the weirdness here. I think I made this eye a little bit too big. So I'm gonna nudge things around towards a little bit smaller. I'm gonna try to fix up that cheekbone here. So she's for sure smiling, but she's not doing a huge grinny smile. Try to make sure I convey that all the while with her mouth open. Like this eye is down a little bit more here. Maybe when I add in the darkness, that'll help. This trick that I'm using of flipping back and forth, this helps me figure out the proportions. I can more easily see when things are just off by flipping back and forth like that. Another thing I can do is get really small. Take a look at it small versus really big. So size and flipping, Going upside down is even a thing, which I used to do a lot, but really I just go back and forth now and size up and size down because I feel like I can do those operations really quickly. I need to add a little bit more black around her eyes. Before I do, I'm gonna erase a little bit of stuff here. Do want to maintain, you can see white down below here. I'm gonna erase this out altogether because this is an area that we want to maintain. It's getting a little muddy right now. And as I do this, I can see that this shape is maybe a little weird. Let me see if I can liquify that into more, well, you know what's weird? So you can kind of see white all the way down. There, it's already looking better. I'm gonna start with this eye. Things are a little bit rough right here. Let me just kind of smudge. A smudge can kind of soften irregularities in line. I'm really pressing down on this medium airbrush here to define this. There is always this darker ridge around the colored part of the eyes. This is our opportunity to make the line quality nice and smooth here. It's either shadow or eyelashes kind of coming down heavy on a woman's eye. I see that here, so I'm going to draw it. There's kind of a heavier line here. I'm going to draw it. Going back and forth between making marks and erasing and smudging, all while looking at the reference. Eyebrow's a little bit too high. I'm going to use the Liquify to bring it down a little bit. Just got some of the eyelashes here. It's a little bit more of a hard line here. Erase this because the highlight kind of hits there. So I suppose there, more than just finding out where these shapes are, I'm also shading and highlighting a little bit. That starts to become more and more something that's part of the process at this phase. This eye seems a little bit higher than this one, so use Liquify, bring it and the eyebrow down. So I'm gonna bring it in closer to the bridge of the nose. You can kind of tell when I do that, her look's changing. I'm bringing in the ridge of that, or the edge of that eyeball, the heaviness of the lid here, adding the dark. A little bit more round darkness here, erasing here. Getting into this pattern where I'm drawing more of a heavy line and then smudging it right away. I feel like as long as the line is done in the direction of the form, there's a benefit. So I'm not drawing this during that one. You can see they're not there in my drawing here. A bit too hard. What am I at? So I am on medium. I'm blowing that line out. I don't want such a thick line. Loosely putting in the darkness of the neck here. It's in shadow. I'm not just making it dark, I'm drawing the line in the direction of the form. This helps further define the form. Generally, I'm liking the shapes that I've got. Again, not 100% with this, but I like what it's doing here. I'm so quick to forget these lips. Lips can be hard. Let me just try to add a little bit more definition on them. Underneath, always a shadow underneath the bottom lip. And there's a shadow right here on the chin, right here. So you can see my initial marks that I'm making now are too harsh, and so I go to the smudge right away. Don't want those harsh marks to linger anymore, even though I still got them throughout the sketch. As I refine, I smudge those away. At this point, I'm going to do one more flip and liquify. I feel like it's good enough. I'm going to flip it back to where it was. Now I want to get a little bit more detailed in my marks. So now I'm going to start using an inking. I'm going to start using syrup for the brush and the eraser, but I'm going to leave soft brush on the smudge. I'll show you why here. I'm going to come back into here. I'm going to add a little bit more precision in this shape. A specular highlight of her eye. I'm going to erase it out here. See this pinkness of her eye? I'm actually going to change that up a little bit and just put a line right here. Whoops, not quite what I wanted. Do that. Then I will sort of smudge it out on the ends. Okay, it gives me a texture that I want. I'm going to do something similar here. And with the syrup, you just push down a little harder to make it thicker. I really don't do comic, the process is referred to as inking, the drawing of the lines. I don't really do that kind of art. Don't do comic book art or comic style. I wish I could actually, but I sort of struggle with line. So here in this process, I'm using it, but just for definition, really. For definition's sake. I add these darker marks on the eyebrows. I'm going not on the edges, but more up in the center. I'm doing more like hair follicles because you can kind of see these thin hair follicles. Don't really see this here, so this will be a little smoother here. Really, I'm going to get rid of this, and I'll quickly switch that back. This syrup setting on the erase is giving me the ability to make that definition that I want. Sometimes I draw in these lines that I don't actually see, knowing that they're gonna look harsh at first, and I kind of blow out the edges a little bit, but leave some sharpness in there. It creates a stylized rendering that I just kind of roll with. I'm gonna kind of soften up this line right here. I think it's just kind of remnant from sort of figuring out the bigger shapes. There's this line here. And then I'm going to do the same, but for erasing. At this point, my goal is to add enough solid marks to make this, the shaky parts of the sketch look a little bit more solid. define her chin down here. I cut in this space down here. And with the line that's left, I'm going to soften it out down into the body area. I'm going to cut in this highlight area, and I'm going to soften it up. And kind of reshape here, cut of the highlight. And I'm going to start doing some confident lines on the hair. When I say confident, they're just going to be thicker and darker. Switching to a medium smudge because I want a little bit more control of the direction of the smudge. And switch back to soft. I'm going to do a couple more thick lines, like there's this curl here, and it goes around like that. Just did a succession of lines, knowing that I'm going to come back in and I'm going to blend them. I might do that pattern later on to kind of suggest hair strands, but for now I'm just looking for solidly blending areas of the hair. Smudging on the same side of these marks I just made, kind of continuing on the lines of what I smudged. Actually, I'm going to do this a little bit. Doing the smudge on the opposite side here. I'm looking at the reference for suggestion. With the hair, I'm just doing a bunch of these kind of lines and then smudging. So these shapes, and the way I'm shading it, they're not realistic, they're stylized. Looking at her hair, she's got this stylized hairdo anyway. So it's an opportunity for me to mess around and see what I come up with. I cut in a highlight here, not that I see it, but based on how things are rendering out, I add it in for definition. So I really am smoothing out and adding a lot of cutting in, getting rid of sloppy edges, and really smoothing out and stylizing. In terms of a sketch, this is really more than a sketch. I'm taking this to a more stylized rendered level. I'll usually take a drawing further along just because I feel more confident at this stage. I feel more confident at this stage than I do when trying to add color. Color is not something, even though I took color theory in art school, and I feel like I've got a good conceptual grasp of it, it's not something that I feel like I can just pick colors and have them be right. I will add color to sketches or drawings. It's more of an experimental process that I go through, and I'll do a video that shows my process for that. Sometimes it turns out, sometimes I realize it was just better as a drawing. I mean, sometimes I do get drawings that are just no good. The world would be better if I just threw them away. Good thing with digital is you don't ever have to throw it away. My iPad is the terabyte because I wanted to be able to really experiment with digital art and not ever feel pressed to have to make space for things. Okay, I'm liking where this is going. I'm gonna add a little bit more shading in the cheek and in the neck here. Oh, and I suppose I should have some more strands in this part of the hair. Again, I'm not looking at the reference other than getting some inspiration from it. Mainly just exploring with lines, adding, undoing, smudging, just going with what looks good, feels good. And it is a stylized approach that I'm taking, which is the point of this. When I was young and in art school and really studying up on drawing, I tried really hard for likeness in things, and I would spend hours doing it. And then one day I just realized, what's the point? You know, a Xerox machine can do it much better than me. There really isn't a lot of expression or as much expression in just copying something. There's a balance. Hyperreal is really cool when you see it, but sometimes it begs the question, why? What's the point? Oops, this is a little too thick. I'm gonna switch to a soft airbrush. I'm gonna add some shading here. Maintain this reflective light right here on her jawbone. I'm gonna add some shading right here, mainly for the hair to pop a little bit more. Contrast gets things to pop. And then I'm gonna add a little bit more definition into the nose. I'll just do that with pronounced line. Medium brush here. I will add a little bit more. Get rid of some of these lines down here. Some of these stray marks here. Yeah, a little bit of a haircut. A little bit of a neck cut. Okay, so what I did for the cheek there, I'm also gonna do for the neck. Big, soft, transparent brush. There is this shadow like that. Or highlight, not shadow. There's another one right here. The reference has cut right there. Okay, I'm gonna clean up this line again here. Okay, usually is the case. I think I see a little bit of it here. The face tends to be bigger than the neck. That is a common stylized thing to do with women, is give them skinnier necks, but I don't want this to look too cartoony. Kind of right in the middle of real and cartoon. Without a doubt, once I want someone to know that this is definitely not a photo. There's a little bit of a smudge there. Didn't know when that happened, but I will recut this and then soften it up. And cut this cheek bone one more time. There we go. Just curious how it looks. I think I like it still this way, which is actually the original direction I found the reference. But I want to keep it her facing this way. It's a little muddled in here. So I'm just cutting a highlight and softening it out. Kind of reiterate a darker area. If I let myself, I could go on and on and on, but I think for now, where I took this, I like not 100% to the reference, but definitely inspired by the reference. And I got to experiment with lines and smudging lines, and really I'm exploring a style, and I'm embracing opportunity to be stylized.